Hello everyone, my name is Oleg, and today I'll talk about a package called Hydra, which I wrote I think 2 years ago. At some slide here I put stats, maybe I'll recall what was happening back then. So what is Hydra? It's the headline of the package is make bindings that stick around. So if we look here, just to check, you see here I have like a bunch of stuff that's still not committed or was experimental, but yeah. So how it all started to happen, the package, is I wanted to zoom in and zoom out in my Emacs window. For instance, if I'm looking at some function and the function is pretty big, too big to fit on one screen. Okay, maybe this is big. Yeah, so I tried to like make it smaller, or so this is the function text scale increase and text scale decrease. And what I had before, can you see this part of the screen all right? Okay, so I just had these bindings like this. For some reason I had the F2 as a prefix, so I was using this F2G, 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 F2L, F2L, F2L. So I thought to myself that's not too convenient, and what I wanted ideally was something like this. So that's the initial state, which is, I think many people use it because that's like a common Emacs premises concept, to have like a prefix binding and then a whole bunch of stuff afterwards. For instance, you have Control X starter, you have Control C, and then you put a whole bunch of stuff afterwards. And yeah, for some reason I had the F2 prefix. But here's what I wanted to have instead. I wanted to have F2 and then G, 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 L, just to adjust things around. So here's how you can do it with a Hydra. You just write down this statement, def Hydra, then you name it somehow. Then you put the key map, which is relevant where you want to bind it. You have the prefix, and you have the heads. So this is called the body, and this is called the heads. So once you call one of the heads, you can just keep calling another head without need to enter the body again. So that's the whole concept of Hydra. And if I can just eval the code over here, I can show you how it looks like now. So initially there was no hint, it was just this kind of thing, but I think it's pretty convenient because you can like stop at the point where you're happy with the G and L, and you don't have to spam F2 anymore. So that was my motivation for introducing it. And initially it wasn't called Hydra, it was called defrep command, and I posted it in 2015 on my blog, and many people found it useful. There was a few comments, even a comment from Sasha Chua, whose blog I was reading like almost every post, and she was quite happy with it and encouraged me to expand this into a package, which I did. So as you can see here, the code is actually 5 or 6 lines. It's not very hard to do it. So you have all your heads, and you just make a sparse key map out of that, define the heads, bind them to each function, and then wrap each function in a lambda. So you call the function, and then you set use the built-in command set transient map. So the way set transient map works, and Hydra still relies on that command, is that it has the highest priority of any map. So in Emacs you have like a major mode, which has lower priority than the minor mode, and then you have a higher mode, which is like set transient mode. So for instance, if you press the key A, first it will be looked in the transient key map, then it will be looked up in the minor mode key map, and so on. But the transient one was like the most high one, and very useful for Hydra. So it just the way it works is like it takes over the state and then is responsible for turning itself off. And that was also a feature just baked into send-transient map, very convenient. So the way this one was working, and I can eval it also here. Okay. So F2G, let's see if it still works. Yeah, the old code still works. So the way it also works is if you press any binding that's not in the transient map, the transient map disables itself and the binding is also called. So that's like super convenient, and the Hydra just inherited that property as well. But another thing that I wanted to say is like this code is a bit repetitive because you have to write the same thing down twice. So there was room for improvement, and the way it looks now is more or less optimal because you don't have repeatable parts anymore. So you need this function and you need the binding, then you need the prefix, and it's stated exactly once. You need to show the map on which it is bound, and okay, this stuff is extra, but okay, you have to call the macro somehow. And this is also nice because as I will show later, this is used as a prefix for all those lambda wrappers that are produced over here. Here they didn't have a name, so that's kind of messy, but here they have a name. So this one will be called hydra zoom / text scale increase, and this one will be called hydra zoom / text scale decrease. And almost very quickly, there were a few issues on the Hydra repository, and this one from this user IMMERR was like super useful because he said, hey, let's add some documentation to these heads just to show what's going on. So before we had this code, and then he said, just add some prefix here that describes the body and something that describes each head. And I thought it was like a really good idea. And so let's evolve that and see how it looks like now. F2G, and now we see that the body docstring goes here, and each head docstring is built out of the key to which it is bound and out of the docstring. So that's also looks very compact, and it's actually quite useful, especially if you have a lot of stuff here and not just two heads. So yeah, I put some comments here in case I kind of get confused because I didn't practice the talk too much, so busy. So sharing ideas is one of the things that make the free software community great. So I had the idea which wasn't optimal but was quite interesting, and then it was picked up by another person who had some more suggestions, and more people come in, and they don't have to start from scratch. They just propose a new idea, and if it's good, it gets picked up, and I think it's a really nice way to evolve to write software. And another thing that I wanted to mention is Emacs. It's a system that's very dynamic, and you don't have to restart. You can just hack things as you go along, and well, it makes it fun. So you write the code, and it's quite short, and you develop it quickly. You don't have to wait for compile times. You don't have to restart. So it was like a fun exercise. It didn't feel like work. So let's now look at the final Hydra zoom that I actually use in my config like every day. Well, not every day, but this is actually what's inside my config. So let's see what is added here. I added one more head for resetting. Let's just evolve this and see how it looks like. So there's one head for resetting without exiting the Hydra, and there's one head for resetting and exiting the Hydra. So that was added also, this new idea that some heads, when you call them, will exit the Hydra state, and some heads, the original idea was like you exit with some other binding that doesn't belong to the Hydra. And so initially I liked the idea of just assigning some color that's recognizable. to the hydra. So if you have a red color, it means the state goes on, and if you have a bluish color, it means the state will be stopped. So I call this like a red head, and call this one blue head. But you can also say in the description like exit T, which means this one will exit, and exit nil is the default one. And okay, so I have one head added here for resetting the zoom level, and one head without exiting, and one head for resetting the zoom level with exiting. And yeah, and I also have one head here that does the same as 0, but it's not visible. So why didn't I make it visible? I don't know why. But why did I put it there? Because I think the 0 is on the right hand side and the 1 is on the left hand side, so it's kind of symmetrical, but you don't want to have too much in the mini buffer because too much stuff is probably confusing. So just let's examine some of the features here and how to say it. Okay, the initial macro was like a few lines, but now it has grown smarter, and for instance here you see that this is the function name, but here this is an S expression which is called to text scale set with a specific argument, and this will be also recognized automatically and wrapped into a lambda. So that's the way it works. And then you have each head can have its own plist. So plist is something like a property list. So first you set write a property and then you write its value. So this one means that we don't want to bind this head to f2.0 because, as you see here, we are binding the heads in the global map. So I want to have f2g and I want to have f2l, but I do not want to have f2.0 and I do not want to have f2.1 because I might want to use it for something else, like digit argument or whatever it is. So this bind nil means don't bind it in my global map. And this exit t, of course, means that it will exit the hydra state. You don't have to press anything else. And this nil is in the place of docstring, so it means this one will not be shown in the mini buffer. But it's still there, but it's just not documented. Okay, so that's the final hydra zoom. Next, let's just recap what's going on here. So the hydra package is being developed at GitHub, and development project releases are at Melpa, which is a really nice website. I'm sure everyone knows about it. And I joined Emacs, I think, about half a year before Melpa, and afterwards it was really great because when I was new, I always download some package and read from the wiki how to set it up, and it's never quite right. And so this was like really nice for me. I could just install a package with a command and use it immediately. And the nice thing about Melpa now is each time I push a commit to Git, automatically it will rebuild in about 4 hours and will be already installable by any user that uses Melpa. So I think that's really cool. Of course, this is development version, so you might expect things to break, so buyer beware. But usually, I have tests, many packages, they have automated tests, and so things don't break too hard, I think. And stable project releases are available at ELPA, which is like considered part of Emacs, and it's I added it quite early to ELPA, and I think it's nice to have like a bigger user base. I don't know, it's maybe more convenient to have it in both places. And this is quite nice for stable releases, I think. A bit unfortunate that you need to go through the copyright assignment process in order to contribute more than 15 lines of code to ELPA, but usually I don't have problems with that. In a month or two, people their documents go through and they have the assignment, and then they can contribute to any package they want. Okay, so let's see more stats. So the initial version was January 2015, and the current stable one is under number 14. I released it yesterday while I was preparing this presentation, because yeah, I noticed that the 13 one was actually in March 2016. So that's a pretty stable version, and here you have a few commits. I think one of the more important features that was added was the columns feature, where you don't have to write the elaborate docstring anymore, and you can just arrange it this into columns. Maybe I show it later if we have some time. So the initial line code count was 43 lines, and now it's I think it's impressive that it's not too much, because not to have it bloated, and it does a lot of functionality, but not too much. So it can be easily understood and reused. 313 commits. Closed issues. There's a lot of. There was quite a bit of contribution from many people with the issues and pull requests. Right now, it kind of is more quiet because it's more stable, and most of the features which were desired, they are already provided. Still a few things to add, maybe to clean up some stuff, but we'll see how it goes. So the project also grew from just me to 13 contributors, and also nice that you can look here on Melpa to see the packages that use Hydra. So now there's something bad is happening here. Okay. So 17 packages, including Hydra, use Hydra. So probably 16. And yeah, about 4 of them are mine, I think, because that's a nice reusable tool. For instance, if one of the things I added to Ivy not too long ago was if I use, for instance, the scribe function, and then use this actions list, this is actually Hydra. And what's nice about this is it's less obtrusive than the previous one was. So the previous one was reusing the mini buffer, which means everything here would be erased, just to show you this list. And now it's nicer. For instance, you can insert instead of describing. So that's that. All for stats. Oh, I clicked something else. Okay. Community. Besides contributing issues and pull requests, you can also make use of the wiki pages. So by this address, and wiki pages are available for unrestricted editing, so you don't have to open a pull request or anything. You can just use it as a wiki, place your code there, and other people can see it and maybe use it for their ideas. And nice tip that it's possible to clone the wiki on GitHub. You can clone any wiki and then just have the look at the markdown and stuff, and have the git log and everything. So I think that's nice. Maybe if you don't like the UI of GitHub. Okay, and there's quite a bit of like really elaborate hydras, like much more than I have in my own config. The stuff I use is more simple, I think. And I have one demonstrated here. So one of them was Helm like Unite. So there was a package apparently in Vim that was called Unite, and that was something for that looked like this for command sets or for completion or something. So let's see how it works. Let's go to the wiki folder. And here's the definition. So you can just open the wiki page and evaluate it from there. And let's open, for instance, Helm MX. Use console MX to open Helm MX, of course. And then LaTeX. And then let's open the Hydra. So I pressed Ctrl O because I bound it like this in the Helm map. And now I can just use short letters, for instance, J and K for navigating like this, H to navigate to the start, L to navigate to the end, and a big letter J to scroll the page and up and down, and there's many things. And if you want to quit, you can press escape, or if you want to enter something, you can press I, and you can just okay. So I really like this idea. I also use a similar idea for Swiper. So that was a really nice idea, nicely executed. And this is, let me also explain what's going on here. This is another color called pink. So what this one does is a variation. When you press any key that's not in the hydra will not quit. So you have to quit it by the means of itself. So let me show you, for instance, how it looks like. So I open a hydra and I press Ctrl B, which is not inside the hydra, but it still works because it's a special one. And you can also see the color, so you can kind of recognize it once you get used to it. And then you have the feature here where initially we had a very simple docstring here, so just a word zoom, but here you can enter something more elaborate. So how it works like is you quote the key in underscores of each head, and it will be highlighted with the appropriate color. And you can also, these characters are used for alignment, so they don't translate to anything, but if you remove them, the stuff kind of gets misaligned. So this also kind of looks like the thing in the mini buffer that you get eventually. So if I remove all those alignment characters, it doesn't look as nice. And the last thing is you can have, this is inspired from Ruby, you can evaluate the code inside your docstring. So what you do is you just write this character followed by an X expression, and then each time the docstring is displayed, it will re-evaluate this code and paste the result into the docstring. So this has to return a string and or actually a symbol that's also acceptable, and it will be displayed there. So for instance, okay, and then I press F, and you see it's doing stuff. Helm follow mode enabled and disabled, and it just shows me the status of Helm follow mode. Okay, and let's move on. So maybe it's interesting to dive into a hydra and see what it does for you. So let's copy the simple one here, and okay, remove everything here. And you have a package in Emacs, the built-in command called macro expand, so it can expand the macro for you like this. And basically this is what gets evaluated when you evaluate a hydra. So first we define a hydra zoom key map variable. A lot of variables here are inherited just so you can have digit arguments. They also work in a hydra. So for instance, if you press F2, you can say 2G to increase it twofold, or 3G. So now it's 6 or minus 6G, and we're back to 0. So these digit arguments are in hydra, they're given for free. And what's next is the actual heads. They get bound to appropriate translations of the keys. So this is, I think this is J, and this is G, and this is L. And what else do we have here? Here we have just some heads. There's also a feature, it's quite complex. You can inherit the heads from one hydra to another. I don't use it myself, but it was useful for other people. So this is just something to allow this feature. And next we have the hints. So this is the string as expression that will be evaluated to produce the docstring that you have in the mini buffer or in the helper window. So this can be any X expression, and that's how basically this Ruby interpolation that I showed you before looks like. It's just a statement of like format and then the key and then blah blah blah. Here is actually a static string, just a propertized string with some faces. There's nothing else. No more arguments, no more dynamic arguments to format. And then we have this function. So hydra zoom prefix text scale increase. So this is a wrapper around text scale increase. So what does it do for us? First, some initial hydra default pre, which is doing something with the input method function and key chord, because also some users wanted to combine key chord and hydra. Then we close the old hydra, and then we call the function itself. And next we call the set transit map. So in fact, it's still very similar to the original code from way back when, which was called the defrep command. And now it's just a wrapper like this. And finally, okay, this is two heads just wrapped around. And next you have the body. So the body is a wrapper around the function that doesn't do anything. So all it does then is show you the doc string. And that's actually the return result. Since this is the last expression in the program, this is the return result of def hydra. So then you can bind the function, bind the body of a hydra to something. So for instance, you could say global set key, maybe like this. So this actually works because you just Control C F and then you bound it to a hydra, a body. So no zooming was involved when I press Control C F, because that's just an empty function that shows us the doc. And that's how that works. It's also maybe interesting to those who make packages to see how hydra is tested. So I'm using the ERT, Emacs regression test framework, I think that's called. So, and as I said, macro expand is very useful. So all this does is we check if the hydra always expands to the same thing. And so basically this body that I showed you already once in Scratch, I just check this manually once, that it looks good. And then each time there's a change to the hydra's code, this has to hold true. And as long as the commands that hydra wraps around still work fine, then there's very little possibility for breakage, because it doesn't do too much for you. I mean, it just wraps around a few things, and it's really easy to test if it generates the correct code. And this is how you can test it. So, as I said, Emacs is fast in this, sometimes it's fast. So it just takes half a second to run all the regression tests. Okay, let's get back on track. So I covered the key map, the heads, the hint, the wrappers, and the body. And of course, inside the generated code, there's this also happening. We bind the F2G and F2L inside the global map. Okay, and how much time do we have left? I could give you a few examples from my config also. Oh, okay, so I guess just keep talking until you get bored of me, so I don't, please interrupt me if it gets too boring. Yeah, I think we can just make a lot of time for questions yeah. So let's see, what do we have here? Hydra marked items. Let's see, where was it? So this is a nice example of string interpolation and how it can be useful sometimes. So this is the code, just let me maximize it. So it has only one head, and all it does is you press M and the direct mark is called, just like it's called always when you press M. But what it also does is it automatically shows you the length of marked files. So let me show you how it works. I press M and it says to me number of marked items is 1, and now it's 4, and if I mark more things. It's really a small thing, so it doesn't do too much, but yeah, it's convenient. I always, when I when I'm in a like really big directory, I always press T to transpose and mark everything, and then press M once to see how many files I have here. So the next one that I find useful is hydra org agenda view, and I think this one is actually provided in the examples. Hydra, when you install it, it ships with the Hydra examples, and you can go through this code. It starts with the simple stuff, and then explains also in a bit of detail, introducing always new flags and stuff. You can also have ASCII art inside if you want. And Hydra rectangle, that's also quite useful one. I have it bound to Ctrl+X space, and you can use the rectangle command. So this was actually added in the recent MX version. So I can delete the rectangle, but and do a bunch of other stuff. I just usually use it for selection and deleting. Okay, and let's go on. So I was talking about Hydra org agenda view, and that one is basically when I'm in my agenda, I press V, and this is the Hydra here. So one of the nice things is the dynamic docstring shows me the current agenda view is set to day, so I can set it to week, VT, fortnight, VM, months, and so on. And then there's all kinds of advanced org things that were somewhere. I don't use all of them. I also like to use VL, where it's logging your work. Right now I turned off a lot of stuff, so it's not here. And also the clock report is quite useful. So I'm trying to integrate it into my org workflow. I don't haven't mastered all of the org's features. And sometimes it's useful to have a reminder of the bindings and things you can use. Next in my config, I have a Hydra toggle, which is nice for toggling often used variables. So I have it bound to Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, and then I can press abbrev mode. As you can see, this is dynamic, so it shows me what's actually the state of the current mode. White space, show, don't show white space, things like that. Org link display, truncate lines, highlight other windows, autofill mode, and so on. Debug on error. It's quite useful actually. And how else would I do that? Some of these functions here, they are actually minor mode, so I could call them from here. And some of them are like variables. It's useful for me to keep these things in one place. Next, I have also a typical usage of Hydra, which is just fixes when you run out of key bindings problem, because most of key bindings in Emacs are already bound. You don't have too much left. You have actually like the prefix Ctrl+C, and you just bind all the letters there, I guess, and then you have to use like really long ones. So what I do here is I bind this to a kappa character, and then KA is agenda, and so on. So I have a whole bunch of stuff defined here. And what's nice, of course, all of those prefix type hydras, they have to have the blue color, which means after each head they simply exit. So it acts like a prefix map, but it's a prefix map with a docstring. And here is a nice feature, which is it idles out for 0.8 seconds. So when I press kappa, I can quickly do it. For instance, if I want to call t time, I called it in less than 0.8 seconds, so it didn't show me the dog, because once you know those bindings, once they are kind of wired to your hands, so you don't really need a reminder anymore. But if you actually need a reminder, it comes there automatically in 0.8 seconds. So you can configure that. And so that's quite useful. And next you can there's also one hydra that I have for Lispy, and it's very similar to hydra k, so it functions as a prefix, key map prefix, but it also experiments with verbosity levels, so someone might be interested in that. For instance, I can say x, and there's nothing, because let's see if I can find some code. Okay, maybe even here. So xf is the flattened one from Lispy, so it actually calls macro expand and all kinds of stuff. But I know that it's xf, but for instance, if I forgot, so I can press x and question mark, and then you have the short hint. So the initial verbosity that I set here is 0, so it means it doesn't show a hint. Then I press question mark, it dynamically changes to 1, and it shows me the short one, and then I can press question mark again, and it changes verbosity to 2, and then it shows me nicely in the columns this description. And that's actually the new columns feature. So you can arrange your heads in columns by just putting the columns plist here and say how many columns you want, and they will be arranged vertically like this. So this is columns 3. And I think it's an interesting concept. So it's as verbose as you need it to be. So it starts out with nothing, and then you can just toggle away. And yeah, that's about it for the examples. And so I made plenty time for questions. So the slides, I'll upload them to my blog. You could download them from here. If there's no problems with my screen recorder, the screencast will also be posted to my YouTube. So thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, I'll answer them.